Kacey, we are undefeated. 2 shows, 2 games. The U.S. women's national team, another 3-goal first half performance, another victory at the Olympics, this time against one of the big ones, the German national team, as the U.S. moves to 6 points to start out Olympic play in Paris. You, of course, are listening to Soccer Wise. If you're listening later, if you are watching live, thank you for being here. We are so excited for this one as the U.S. knocks off Germany 4-1 in this match. That moves them, I believe, already out of the group stage, but I'll go through the standings and do a little bit of math as we go along. We've got a lot to talk about north of the border in Canada, an upset victory over France a moment ago, as well as, of course, like 87 different international treaties that have been broken due to espionage and drones and all of that as we go through. And then just a wild day of soccer overall, Kacey. We came on, we did the U.S. post-Zambia game. We talked about this, and it was fun. It was interesting, but today was like next level on every single match, it felt like.
It really was. And I think that's what you expect as you get a little bit further into the competition, further in the Olympics. And today certainly didn't disappoint. All of these games had a little something different about it. And obviously I'm pumped right now after just watching the United States have a great victory over Germany.
It was a result that the U.S. wanted. It was a result that the U.S. needed, as it was considered by many the biggest game of the group stage as you go through it. We've got a lot to talk about. We've got a lot to break down. Last time we did a little play-by-play. I think this time I want to talk about some of the key features in this tournament. I want to talk about some of the key players in this game, and I don't think you could start anywhere else except Trinity Rodman. She had the opening goal against Zambia, sets up the opener today, 2 straight plays in those opening 15 minutes where she gets down the right side. But overall, right now, it feels like this team runs through her, and she's the one setting the tone early on in both these matches going forward.
I absolutely love her in the wide space. Yes, she scored last game, but on that first goal, her ability to understand, to play in one touch, combine with Rose Lavelle, and her service to Smith for the goal, it doesn't get much better than that. And I love seeing her play in that middle third and understanding those combinations.
And so then you get Trinity Rodman on that right side, and it felt pointed to me from the start, and I'm curious how you saw it, that Rose Lavelle, she likes to sit in the right-hand channel, but she was almost living on the right-hand wing in the build-outs over the first 10, 15 minutes, and then she links up twice with Rodman, and it feels purposeful of like, how can we get Rodman into space? Sometimes you want to isolate a wide winger and let them be the only player on the side of the field. It feels like right now Rose Lavelle's job is to be that helper in that right side.
Absolutely. And a little bit of a different nuance in this game. Horan played off the left a little more in last game. She played more off the right, which actually helped Rose Lavelle get even higher off the right side. That occupies the left back of Germany and isolates Trinity Rodman. It was tactically very well executed because you've got to pay attention to Rose Lavelle. So you're looking at all these players going, which one do I leave open? And the answer is none of them. But when you do, they execute.
And that's where, to me, this game opens up at that moment, which is Rodman creates the first goal, and then the next play you see 2 or 3 defenders come to Rodman's side, and the switch flipped. It felt like, for especially Sophia Smith to say, oh, like there's support going other places, that means I'm 1v1. And she puts her head down, she gets the shot, she curls just wide, she creates chances, and then she creates the second goal as well in a moment where you can see her say, either I'm scoring or Mal's scoring on this play, and she's just attacking defenders.
Yeah, what I loved about this game is there was really good possession, but like you said, it was more about the attacking players on an individual level. That second goal and Sophia Smith forcing the center back to make a mistake, not be able to foul her because she was already on a yellow card, getting the shot off, and you just see this opportunistic run from Swanson. All of them just look like they're buzzing around ready to get goals.
So Smith is able to set up that second goal, and she was dangerous the whole game. In the Zambia game, it was a lot of going out left to create for Swanson and others. This game, she found that balance, it felt like, of creating for herself as well as for others. She did a lot of it from the central position, but she still does find those openings out left when Swanson vacates that area. It feels like Dunn's not playing as high as maybe we expected Niswanger to play, and Smith's the one who's taking advantage of those opportunities right now.
That's what's really exciting about this group is that there's a system in place. You can see the system that Emma Hayes is putting in there that gives the team structure, but it's one that rewards flexibility and creativity of movement. And that's why you see Sophia Smith kind of going out when Swanson comes in. We talked about it in the first game. We're seeing it a little different versus Germany, but still a lot of flexibility up top.
Talk to me a little bit about Germany in this, because now at this point we're talking through it and you're 25 minutes in, the U.S. is up 2-0. Germany had one good look early, but it feels like, Germany ties 1-1, tied it up 1-1 as I'm looking through my notes and the chaos that I created.
I was about to say something, but you figured it out.
And the German goal, I thought there was some great play. I thought it was very self-inflicted from the U.S., which was they left Coffey and Haran on an island in I thought, a weird way in their build-outs in which no support, but they weren't playing the Haran and Coffey into their feet in ways that they could go upfield. And it felt like they were very isolated. The goal comes from Haran's forced to sort of play it out of bounds. You could say she played a poor ball either way, and then Germany gets the throw in and immediately attacks. And it felt like that was the one big mistake from the U.S. over the first 45 minutes.
The U.S. was over-rotated in that moment 100%, and you could see when Gaven picks up that ball, Crystal Dunn's not sure if she should step inside because she's occupied to a degree. Mallory Swanson's high. It's not really her space to come in, but Coffey and Haran are overshifted because of the way that happened, exactly what you said. You got to give credit to the strike, but it goes through Tierna Davidson's legs. It's right in the corner. What I like, though, from the U.S. is the way they bounce back from that, because that could have easily changed things in the game, and the response was within, I believe, 3 minutes for that next goal, and that's huge.
Yeah, it never changed the momentum of the game. The U.S. gets their second in the 26th minute. It's Tierna Davidson, who you just mentioned there, wins it back first time on the first touch, plays it over the top to Smith. Smith battling with the center back, gets the strike. Berger, as you'd expect, saves it because Berger's been that good this year. But Swanson understands the pressure, understands the moment, follows it up, puts it in, makes it 2-1. Let's talk about Tierna Davidson for a second because she goes off about 15 minutes after this play with an injury. She is a player that I think about a lot when I watch, because anytime she takes a knock or starts limping, you worry, because she was supposed to be the future. She was supposed to be Naomi Girma before Naomi Girma. Now it's great to have two of them, but on the 2019 roster as the youngest player, has struggled with injuries consistently. This has been her first year where she's healthy, in form, going into a tournament. And you could see the look on her face when she came off. They cut to her, I think accidentally, when the U.S. scored the third goal, but she doesn't even react to the goal because it feels like she understands that she's kind of back in this again. How much do you feel for her? And then how much does this affect this team?
I feel for her tremendously, and my fingers are crossed that everything is going to be okay with Tierna Davidson. But I think she provides something really interesting. This is a team that in the past, and I don't mean just immediate past, but further back, did a lot in counterattacking transition, right? But now we're seeing a team evolve a little bit more in the possession game, had the majority of possession versus Germany. But you still have a player like Tierna Davidson who understands how to play in that moment, but also when to just play safe, get the ball forward. Because on that second goal, like you mentioned, she realized the backs of Germany were not in a structured position, and Sophia Smith is up top, ready to pounce. And I like that from her, because every now and then you just got to put your foot through a ball. I think for this potential of her being out, it's really tough for the United States because center back pairings are just that. They're about a unit pairing that gets comfortable playing together. I'm glad Sonnet came in and did a good job. They were connected in a lot of ways, didn't give up another goal. So I think that breeds some confidence there, but that pairing just hasn't had as much time to develop.
It is also a numbers game. 18 on the roster, 17 field players on your team. Emily Sonnet's the backup defensive midfielder on this team, as well as the backup center back. And so you look at a situation going forward where obviously the U.S. in the driver's seat, feeling comfortable in the group. But if Coffey's unavailable, or if Coffey picks up a second yellow card in the next game, or you don't want to start her because you don't want her to pick up that second yellow card, you are now trying to figure things out. Hal Hirschfeld, of course, available as one of the alternates, but now you're starting to dip into players that haven't really been in the group or you didn't expect to play coming into a moment like this. And this is where the Olympics become really, really tough because you don't have a ton of options, or you don't have a ton of depth or a ton of time. I think it was discussed on the broadcast, but the German national team was asking for more available players on their roster because it's been 3 days And now you have to turn around and play again in a moment like this at this intensity. But the U.S. was able to do it in this one. And then they get the goal to close the half. Sophia Smith deflected shot. I'm sure your coaching brain was like, that's why you shoot. That's why you take risks. I'm sure you were excited to see that.
I was. How'd you know that?
I could sense it based off every text I got the moment the goal scored was everyone being like, that's why you shoot. That's why you shoot.
Oh, yeah.
It was a big moment, but it's one of those moments where you're just watching this team right now and, Sophia Smith whiffs on the first chance and then immediately she gets the ball clean into her feet. And it feels like she's in a zone right now where she is so quickly comfortable in possession and knows what she wants to do and drives forward. And yeah, it's a fortunate deflected shot, but like she beats two defenders to get there. She forces a deflection and she shoots from a dangerous area.
On another day, it might not go in, but what I'm liking is that our top goal scorers want to be the difference makers. They're looking for opportunities. They're not only looking for clear opportunities, but half chances. And players are running off the ball, looking for rebounds. That's the efficiency in the final third that's needed because as you go throughout this tournament, less of those chances could occur. So it might just be one. And so I'll take it all day long, count that goal because Sophia Smith did a lot of work. And like you said, you don't shoot, you don't score.
And it's one of those moments as you watch this first half, because you mentioned the runs. Swanson, sacrificial run to the near post on that first goal, knowing that, if she makes that run, the opening's there behind her. You talk about then making the run off the shot from Smith, the deflected. There is flow to the front three right now. There is a flow in a way in which they believe the runners are coming behind them. They believe their teammates will find them, and they want everyone else to succeed. And like we have talked for months, how will it work? How will it fit together? The frustration out of the Costa Rica game, the wind blowing through my apartment right now because everyone's so excited. The frustration at times at the Mexico game. But I felt coming out of the Mexico game that it was what I wanted to see. It's that balance between willingness, being a good teammate, and being an elite player. Like you're talking about 3 MVP candidates in NWSL. You can't just become a playmaker and a creator and lose yourself. And Isabella in the chat says our front three were incredible today. Like I was very excited after Zambia. Some people told me I overdid it because it's Zambia and you don't know, although we learned a lot today, maybe about that matchup. This isn't. This is Germany. This is the 4th best team in the world. And it felt like that front three was playing at a world-class elite level.
I completely agree with you. I think there's a selflessness to the way they play, but also a ruthlessness to the way they play. All 3 of them want to make a difference, but it doesn't have to be just me in each moment. It can be any of them at any given time. And I love that we're seeing them pick spaces to exploit the opponent that's in front of them. And like you said, Germany provided a completely different challenge, and they rose to it, and they were able to still score goals.
Second half opens up. And I think the big question mark for the U.S. going forward, especially defensively, is going to be their ability to defend at the fullback positions. Germany seemed intent on attacking down Germany's right side, the U.S.'s left side. A lot of clean 1-2 play, whether it was Brand being out wide, connecting, the fullbacks getting higher up the field. That's clearly the threat, and that's where a team like Germany felt that they had an opportunity. What do you make of what you saw in the U.S.'s ability to defend that? And is there any type of tweak you look at making going forward?
For this game, I thought in the first half, Germany got in there a few more times that it was dangerous. In the second half, when you have a 3-1 lead, it looked like Crystal Dunn at times was a little bit more conservative. Just if she wasn't going to really be involved in the attack, she immediately went back into a position where she could intercept balls. It still happened that Germany got into that area, and that's not a Crystal Dunn thing for me. It's the way in which we're attacking. We move into more of a 3-6-1 when we're attacking, putting her as more of a midfielder. So that's the obvious space that they can transition into if we do lose possession. But I think we can expect to see that. If we have more games where we control the possession, that is definitely going to be a transition moment that the U.S. is going to have to be aware of.
Yeah, it was Gwynn for much of the game, obviously gets the goal. Brand, I thought, was really impressive in this game. And then you see Schuler sort of come in and try and get involved and try and engage them. One of the tough parts about this game, and we knew this because we did it in our preview of it, and our preview is Oberdorf picking up the injury, creates this hole in midfield, and the Germans decided to fill it with Pop, who is one of the best center forwards in the world. And I think you get it out of this game, and obviously hindsight is 20/20, a mistake there. And it wasn't just that you took Pop off the front line, she looked uncomfortable. Like she couldn't connect clean passes. That's not her game. And so it felt like you took away your best advantage to fill a hole in an area where you were never really going to win that battle. Like you look at this U.S. midfield, you're not going to dominate central midfield against this team. And I thought Germany really killed themselves in two different ways there.
Yes, I agree. And with Brand and Ven off the right side, they can be providing services. It was almost like, yes, you had Schuler in there, but Pop is on another level. She's an absolute monster in the air. She's a beast. She can win anything in the air and not only win it, but put it on frame with authority. So with some of the chances that they were creating on that right wing, you would think that Germany would want her in that space if she's not going to provide more in the midfield area.
It was tough to watch, especially as they tried to come back. The U.S. dropped off a little bit, as you'd expect, right? If you're this U.S. team, it feels self-explanatory that if they're ahead and other teams have to open up, they're going to sit in, absorb, and try and counter through numbers. We saw Swanson get out a couple times. Rodman made some really good off-ball runs, trying to help create. Smith was dangerous as well, but it feels like going forward, this U.S. team, once they get ahead, they're going to let you try and open up and play them. This is the first opponent we've seen all year that has done that, because Germany is good enough to do it. And it felt like finally it clicked where it's like, oh yeah, now Smith can go 1v1 against center backs. Now Swanson can run into space. The goal she sets up for Lynn Williams, she's able to drive into 20 yards of open space and make a decision facing goal, which for a world-class attacking player becomes pretty straightforward as you get into it.
And on that topic, I think we have to really differentiate between a 1-goal lead and a 2-goal lead. Because at a 1-goal lead, we were still pushing. The United States was still looking to go forward. And it was earlier in the game, and so understandably so. But when you get that next goal to create the 2-goal cushion, you can now pick and choose your moments. And we are a good team in transition as well. And it was highlighted by that 4th goal for Lynn Williams.
It was a huge moment. And I think you see it, what it means to people. Like, this team loves Lynn Williams, and obviously she was the last player added on as an alternate. Now Corey Bethune has been added on as well in place of Caterina Macario. But we talked about it at the end of the last game. Like, you've got the NWSL's all-time leading goal scorer coming off the bench for this team. It shows the depth. It shows the flexibility. It shows the talent. And it feels like she fits pretty cleanly in a way in which the flow, the style over the course of the first 70 minutes can remain once she comes in.
I think it's a perfect time for Lynn Williams to come into the game. You have that lead. There's space to now counterattack into, which she's good at. I jumped off of my couch and said, far post. I wanted her to hit it far post so much, and she did it perfectly. It was clinical, and you just get another player that scored a goal. That's big for this team, and it's big for attacking players to have that in their minds, that they can score in critical moments.
So the U.S. officially has advanced. You don't know exactly what spot the U.S. has advanced in, although it feels fairly likely that it will be in first place. Australia is currently tied with Germany for second. Germany ahead on goal difference, not on goals scored, because Australia just put up 6 in this game against Zambia, as Australia knocked off Zambia 6-5 in arguably the wildest soccer game I have ever seen. So the U.S. locked into first. You assume, unless they lose by 8 goals to Australia or something wild happens in the Germany-Zambia game, which I guess is possible based off what happened earlier today, that the U.S. is through first place. I will throw this out there already. I think Julie Foudy and John Champion were talking about, but you might play a better team, whatever. Throw all that out of the window, because France lost to Canada about 30 seconds after they said that. And you don't know what's going on. You take first place in the group, you move on. I have no qualms about that. How rotated do you expect Emma Hayes' team to be, though, for this third group stage game?
I think it really depends on the state of the players. They have to see what players are feeling like. I would expect more rotation. Obviously, today with a 2-goal lead, there wasn't as much as early, but it started to come later in the game. So I would expect some rotation. I don't know if it'll be in the starting 11 or not, because players are clicking and moving. And so unless there's a medical reason or something that's a little tweaked, or they just might need a little rest, I would go with it. Just maybe you're subbing earlier now because you know you have the ability to do so. Something
you'd expect to similar to what we saw against Zambia, right? Rose out mid at halftime, protect her, load management.
Exactly.
Although very odd that she then never came out of this game, which I think is a little bit weird. Corey Bethune would be the obvious replacement. She's an alternate, has yet to come in. Jaden Shaw unavailable once again for this game, and that's something that the U.S. is going to be monitoring and watching, and that's a huge question mark for them because I think Shaw, not just as a 10, but like as a versatile piece, was a big part of this team. But I think I agree with you in that it feels good. Emma Hayes has only actually coached this team now for 6 games?
Correct, yeah.
Like, take another good 45 minutes at least. Get some more minutes. Work on some things that you want to work on. I think you're probably working on the build outs. You're working at the defensive support for Dunn. You're working out the timing and movement between Swanson and Smith on that left side. Like, work on all of that in a live situation one more time and take it from there. Talk to me a little bit about Emma Hayes. Like, this is new. I texted you. I think I said this was the best at halftime that I'd seen them play since 2019. And like, I couldn't think back to all of the games. And then I was like, no, I don't think there's a question about that. What do you make of her ability to either affect this so early, or is it nothing and stepping back and letting these players just play?
Well, before I get into the tactical side, because I think she's doing some brilliant things tactically, I think one thing about Emma Hayes is she's a player's coach. She manages really well. She's passionate. You can see it. It's written all over her face. And as a player, that's something that you really like. You want to see a coach in control, but passionate. And I think she embodies that really well. And when a team has a structure like they're playing with, which I love to see, I've talked about it the last time we spoke, I'm speaking about it now, the way that they're transitioning from an attacking system of play to a defensive system of play, from more of like a 3-6-1, it looks like a 3-4-3 at times, back into a 4-4-2 defensively. Like, they look like they truly understand what's happening. And you have to give credit to Emma Hayes, but also to Twyla Kilgore, who was coaching games leading up to it with, and obviously in constant contact with Emma Hayes, Denise Reddy as an assistant. All those pieces, I think, is showing as we watch like how structured they are. But it's not just based on a system that I think Emma Hayes wants. It's based on the personnel and their characteristics and what they're good at, what are their strengths, and they're being highlighted.
Yeah, it is awesome. It's fun to watch. You also feel that balance in there when you talk about that transition moment. But like, how often have we seen the U.S. look uncomfortable in possession and like unhappy to have the ball or unsure of how quickly to go? And right now the balance feels very natural for a lot of these players. And you're doing that with players who play different styles in club now, where in the past, maybe the NWSL was a bit more homogenous. And we said, a lot of players play transitionally. A lot of players at the game's direct and physical. And that's not the case for the Washington Spirit all the time, or for Gotham or San Diego. And you throw all these players together right now, and it feels like you found a bit of an American style for them all to fit into.
You're right. And what's interesting is we had a lot of possession today, but it wasn't really through the feet of Coffey and Haran, which normally when we have possession, those are the two players that are on the ball a lot. It was a lot of our back three in buildup against the front two of Germany, having to figure out how to find different spaces, a lot through the wide areas, or finding the feet of our forwards. So I thought that was really interesting and boded well for an attacking style that was possession oriented, but it was still dangerous at the same time.
Eric Gonzalez, shout out to the legend in the chat, says, what's the nickname for the front three? I saw the Trident online. I think that's fine. I don't think it's great. I think you need something great for three players like this. Like, if they're going to play like this together, you need something like elite. And I don't feel like we have it yet.
I don't know if I can contribute to that quite yet, but I think we can keep working and keep trying to figure something out.
So we all have a task now. The players have gone out, they've done their job, they've advanced to the next round. We now need to figure this out and create something elite for this front three, which we hope will play together for the next 10 years in a row and everything else. Jackie D says, good day for NWSL, really. Banda with the goals, Smith, Mal, Williams, even Jesse Fleming, who was phenomenal for Canada in their game as well. Yes, Isabella, we heard them talk about the trifecta on the broadcast. I'm not impressed by that. I think the Trident is better than the trifecta. Either way, you get the Trinity Rodman part of it in at the front, but like the other names don't work. So I don't know. I still need to be impressed by something a little bit more. I need someone to send us something really, really good. If you want to message us directly, you can subscribe to Patreon. Then you get into our Discord chat. We were talking all game today, and you can be a part of that, and you can send me things in the mailbag and everywhere else, and you could talk to all the other fans as we go through all of this. I want to put some context on this because we're stoked. I'm stoked This was a big performance. Claire Watkins at Scout Ripley on Twitter says this was before it finished, the U.S. women's national team's first win against European competition in a major tournament not on penalties since 2019. And to add on to that, this was the first time Germany has given up 4 goals in a competitive match since they did so against Brazil all the way back in the 2008 Olympics semifinal. So this wasn't just a good game. This was a historic performance against a great opponent. And this was really the first bounce back moment, I think, where this U.S. core now, these players, the Trident, whatever we're going to go with, that they've sort of put their foot down and said, this is who we are. And as excited as we were out of the Zambia game, this is probably the most exciting result we've seen since that 2019 World Cup victory.
Yes, and Germany, even if when they're not at their best, they are structured defensively. They understand spaces, and our front three, and I'd even include Rose Lavelle in there. They were able to find a lot of open spaces. The efficiency in front of goal was good, but I think we have to think forward too, as well. Of okay, we might not find all those open spaces all the time. I mean, I would love it if they go through every game and this is the kind of goal scoring we have, but we need to be better even on the defensive side too, just not giving up as many chances towards Alyssa Nair and things like that. So I'm sure the staff will be talking about, okay, but what if the game changes a little bit? How do we adapt?
It's the first time the U.S. has scored 3 first-half goals in back-to-back Olympic games ever. So, yeah, maybe every game doesn't go that way. But also it would be super nice for them.
I would love that. I would love it.
Yeah, if every single game went that way for them going forward. Let's talk about the field. Let's talk about the rest of things because, as I've mentioned, it was just an absurd day of soccer. Let's start in the other half of this group, and then we'll try and talk about Canada and contextualize it. Australia beat Zambia 6-5. That's a soccer score. That was a real game that occurred. It was a competitive game in which both teams were trying as hard as they could. It was the second highest scoring game in Olympic women's soccer history. Zambia was up 3-1 and 4-2 at halftime. They went up, I believe, 5-3 at one point. Australia equalized, and then Australia won it 6-5 late on. Just an absurd series of games and moments, and forget tactical. This was, I was texting you saying, I've never seen anything like this. It was just a wild experience to have overall. I think it was one of those ripples where everyone was watching Spain against Nigeria, and then everyone's texting around the world being turn on the Zambia-Australia game because something wild's going on.
It's one of those ones you don't necessarily know what is going to come out of that game. You really don't. And then you turn it on and you see the score. I actually thought it was a stat that was up when I turned it over and it said 4-2. I was like, only 4 shots to 2 shots? I really didn't think it was the actual score.
We're on corner kicks right now?
Exactly. I was like, what stat are they showing? What's the broadcast team doing here? But I realized it was 4-2 because they showed a score summary. And Barbara Banda was doing her thing and got all the goals. She was on the hat trick. But I think it was a wild game in general that you can't really put into words. But also it was super open. So there was a lot of 1v1s, not a lot of defensive structure for both teams, and a couple mistakes here and there, goalkeeping, some fouls. It just got a little out of hand. And somehow both teams just kept punishing the other team. And it made for something really fun to watch.
It was pickup soccer at times. There was no midfield. But then it's pickup soccer with world-class players. And so it's you don't really have room for error when no one's going to track back. Well, it's Banda now attacking 2 defenders by herself. For Australia, I said in the first half, I felt they gave up against Germany. I thought it was an unprofessional performance at times. And it felt like a team that had no belief in themselves and kind of decided we can't do this anymore. And you look back to the World Cup and you say to get through the group stage where they did in the World Cup without Sam Kerr, it was dialed into every moment, closing down correctly, being in line, working hard, winning every tackle. And some teams don't have that in them for another cycle. And this time you don't have 80,000 fans behind you. You're off in France in front of, opponents and all that stuff. It felt like that over the course of a game and a half. So credit to either it's the players or Tony Gustafsson or whoever for finding it in this team to then turn around, and they may have saved their spot. There's a decent chance they're getting through to the knockouts now.
You have to give credit to them for sure, because I was even watching going, okay, they have a choice to make right now. And Tony looked relieved at the end of the game. He looked tired. He looked relieved because after their World Cup performance, if that goes down as a tie or a loss, and credit to Zambia, they scored some great goals. Banda had a great service to Kudamanji. She had also 2 goals. She had another goal that was a great finish. Banda had a couple. So there were some good goals, but I think he was like, what is happening? We've got to figure out, no matter how ugly it is or what it looks like, we've got to figure out a way to win this game to have a chance. And they're going to have to come out against the United States and really play for their lives. So that's going to be another factor that the United States has to think about as well.
They have conceded 8 goals in 2 games. Zambia has conceded 9 in 2 games. It is like a mind-blowing number for a team where clean sheets and their defensive solidity was their solution at the World Cup without a world-class goal scorer in Sam Kerr. And so it just felt like it all fell apart all of a sudden. And as you said, credit to Zambia. We talked about it in the U.S. game, like even down a player in the second half, they went for it. They created chances. Banda got out in transition. There was moments where they looked dangerous. They just couldn't complete it. And I think Gurma, a different level of defender, and all these other things that occurred. But Zambia picked up right where they left off in this game. They were up 5-2 in the second half. Jackie D corrected me in the chat, so thank you to Jackie for that one. And this was just like, this is just fun. And like you said, like both teams kind of just were into it, and they were like, yep, this is what we do now. And Australia at 5-5 pushed for the winner in stoppage time, and that's the only reason they get the 3 points. They move into a tie for second place with Germany. Head-to-head is not the first tiebreaker. So Australia could still finish equal on points with Germany and get through. The first tiebreaker is goal difference, and then it goes down to goals scored. So winning 6-5 is actually better than winning 1-0
right,
for everyone except coaches. I don't think coaches will enjoy that on any level.
They need more than 3 days off to recover from that.
Tony's like, we're already in the the French South Coast. I'm just going to go take 2 days and like have a little baguette and some wine and relax. You get down to head-to-head on the fourth tiebreaker. So it's goal difference, goals scored, obviously points is first, and then you get down to that tiebreaker. And right now, the U.S. sitting in first. It would be a surprise if they didn't win the group. They, as well as, of course, all these games are played at equal time. They will all face off on Wednesday, I believe. So we'll be back with you 3 p.m. Eastern. The game is 3 p.m. Eastern time. So we'll come live post-game for that. We won't do our normal Wednesday NWSL show that Jordan normally does with me because we will be talking about this. And we will be helping preview the medal rounds as you go forward. Let's dig into the other action today. Let's dig into the other groups. Let's start with Canada, big picture, and then we'll get into the game. Canada, of course, the punishments coming down for the spying and drones and all of that stuff that's occurred. I don't actually have all the details in front of me because my brain is spinning right now. Bev Priestman has been taken away from the team. She will be suspended for a year, as well as some other staff members for Canada. And Canada was docked 9 points. Yes, 9 points, but that did not knock out the result against New Zealand. So Canada was already sitting on 3 points. They went down to -6, and then they beat France today, and now they're back up to -3. Let's start big picture, because I'm a fan. I watch the game. I love it. You're a coach. You've been inside of competitive teams. What is your reaction to hearing this just out the gate, and sort of what have you processed about what Canada did and maybe what type of punishment should follow that?
Well, as it was kind of slow drip to all of us, right, through the media, and then we heard about the analysts, then it was Bev Priestman and everything, you're kind of just getting little bits and pieces of it. But my initial reaction was all about the players. Like, this is a huge distraction for the players. So it's never more critical than for your leaders to step up within the team. And we talked about it a little bit with what has been going on with Zambia and their coaching situation. Like, it's not fair that the players have to step up and, right the ship, but that's happening here with Canada too. They've got to figure out how to really make sure that they create a bubble around themselves. And that might mean not being on social media as much, not reading things as much. And you do that anyways when you're at a world event, to really just try to create, hey, this is about us. But this actually, as horrible as it can be, the players can reunite around this and use that and go, we're here for us and we're here for our country. Let's go out there and show what we're made of. And so that can also be something that can really light a fire for players, however unfair that this whole situation is.
Yeah, it is very tough. And I think you see that in a lot of people sort of talking about the punishment that's come out and, how much of it falls on the players, and especially the points deduction and everything. So let me ask this. You don't know, you're not there, but the assumption is the players don't know. Like, they're just getting information. They don't know where it's coming from.
Right. That would be the assumption. And what I'm assuming is the case, because when you're sitting in there as a national team player, like when I was getting information as a player, I wasn't like, well, how did you find this? Like, well, did you get, people go scout, you're allowed to do these. There's so many ways that you can get information through any type of scouting that you can do, that's not against the rules. So I would assume that no player had anything to do with this. And I think, you've had players come out and say that as well from the past. Christine Sinclair being the biggest one, saying, hey, let's not let this take away from what Canada has accomplished, because they didn't know. And so I think we have to believe that.
Stephanie Labby as well, talking as a goalkeeper. I think the big talk around this has been watching PKs in training, knowing the order of shooters. I saw some people talk about, which is a really interesting one, of like, that could just be the best advantage you get, which is if whoever's training the most, the assumption they're going to shoot, you can sort of prepare yourself for those moments. She sort of fought back on that and said, I know the tape I'm watching game tape. You're looking at data as well.
Right.
All of that's coming out of matches. And it really has sucked for a lot of these players. And it really has sucked for a lot of the situation for what's going on. As an opposing coach, or just a coach, like, how much of an advantage would you assume this gives? Because the other part of this, I will say, which is in being around the game in a broadcasting sense of like, coaches hiding lineups from you and the way they talk to you and shield things. It's almost like there's an assumption everyone's slightly cheating all the time or trying to. How big of a thing should we think this is?
I think most managers would say they're trying to gain an advantage in ways that don't go against rules,
Just on the line, yeah.
For me, I'm not a very gray area kind of person. My personality is very like, that's within the rules, that's not within the rules. So I am, just from a personal perspective, I draw a pretty hard line on like, we know what we can do and what we can't do. Anything within that, you've got to try to find the best way to prepare your team.
Let me apologize, by the way. Canada was docked 6 points. So they are back up to 0 now after the first 2 wins. They can finish on 3 points as the highest, which sort of felt like a punishment that sat in a place of like, we're not going to give you the death sentence and eliminate you from this competition, but we're not going to turn, the other way and ignore it. And so this -6 points was like, you still have a shot and it's on you now. And you can't really say, oh, the IOC and FIFA decided what ended up happening to this team. And then Canada came back today and they beat France 2-1 in France. They go down 1-0. They battle back. They make it 1-1. And obviously I'm watching the US on the TV and Canada on my laptop. But it was, for the most part, from what I saw, it was the performance I would have expected from Canada if none of this had happened. Of like, they're not going to dominate possession, but they were cleaning their lines. They had some dangerous transition moments. They went with some more attacking subs as the game ran along, and they're able to get the second goal. Fleming following up an Ashley Lawrence cross that the keeper comes out on, handles the moment well, cleanly takes the ball, slots it into an open net. And then I think the shocking part to me, not because of the results, but because it's France, in France, was Canada looked the more likely team to win. And they end up getting it in the 102nd minute. So it was 90 plus 13, I believe, on stoppage. They scored in 90 plus 12, played a little extra after that because of the goal. And like, Canada are in this. The best third place teams go through. You finish on 3 points, there's a decent chance you're going through because the goal difference wasn't affected. If you had taken the New Zealand game and said, oh, you forfeit at, a 3-0, 4-0 scoreline, that probably kills your opportunity.
Right.
That's not the case for this Canada team. And now they're in a place where, like, they go up against Colombia in a very winnable match in a way in which they could get through. I think just it's a huge credit to these players that they bounced back and said, none of this matters to us. Like, we're going to go out and do our job.
Well, they had a choice to make. There's a lot of noise, obviously, around their camp, and it's big, big news. They had a choice. They could just kind of roll over, or they could figure out, okay, this is something we have to do. We can't just go get a tie. We can't manage a loss. Like, we want to advance. And we're talking about the defending gold medalists. Like, this is a team that is going to absolutely go after it. And so to win it in the fashion they did, like you said, and I think you just said the 102nd minute, I mean, that's also very dramatic. Everything right now, there's a lot going on and a lot of drama around their team, but they're showing a lot of heart and fight to put themselves in a position to make that where it's irrelevant and that the focus does turn back to the players, which is where it should be.
I'm going to try and dig into this a little bit more behind the scenes and have more for people when we come back on Tuesday, because now the stories are coming out that this has been happening for years, and the stories are coming out that the belief is it has happened on the men's side as well. And so you're looking at something that's either federation down, which isn't exactly normally how staffs work, except you're in a situation here where the women's national team coach became the men's national team coach. And John Herdman gave some quotes where he sort of was like, I can't believe this happened. I'm going to be as much as they need for the investigation. It's like, well, yeah, for sure. But like, who else was it happening under? So I think we're going to learn a ton. I think me and Tom on Tuesday, when we come back to do our MLS show, we'll talk about this a bit more. John Herdman, of course, coaching TFC now after leaving the Canadian men's side. This is a bizarre story. And you said it like it's coming out in drips. And then every once in a while you look back and you're like, wait, does that say what I think it says? Because there were all these rumors, and then like it was reported, and then we go back again. Jesse Marsh apparently saying that, or there's rumors coming out that he was approached about it at Copa America and said, no, that's not what we do. So this is a wild story in all different directions, but the players continue to perform, and they do so in a way that keeps them alive into the knockout rounds. Colombia got a 2-0 win over New Zealand, so a huge bounce-back performance from them. Lacey Santos getting the goal. So now that one is perfectly squared for this final game. Colombia currently in first place on the group, tied with France on points, better goal differential. New Zealand on 0 are technically in third because Canada are now tied with them. Actually, I don't know how that works. So I guess Canada has a positive goal difference, and they are on 0 points.
It's a bit bizarre.
Yeah, I've never seen that before. So Canada still have control of their own destiny going forward. Let's finish things up with Group C. Another wild group, another day of wild performances in that group. Brazil, 1-0 lead over Japan in the 56th minute. Japan come back. They score a penalty in the 92nd. They score the winner, a gorgeous winner from Tanakawa in the 96th. And this, for large stretches, Kacey, felt like this was going to be Brazil's new defining moment of they always give you promise. They don't give you results a lot in these big competitions. And it felt like a steady performance from them up until the penalty. And then it all fell apart. And you saw Marta's emotion on the sideline of like, I can't believe this is happening again.
Yeah, because it was little things, and especially on that second goal when Rafaeli just plays that little ball across square. How many times is a player going to punish you in the way that Japan did on that one? Goalkeeper's out a little bit because they're in clear possession. It was a great strike. But Brazil did seem to have a lot of control, but I'll go back to the first half where Tanaka missed 2 opportunities, 1 penalty and a ball played across that she just kind of hit off her heel, and a great player, but just had 2 missed opportunities that could have put it in the other direction before Brazil scored. So it seemed a little interesting that they were able to muster that towards the end of the game and be able to come out with the win.
It was, I think, a testament in the end to Japan of, I don't even think Spain's as committed to their game model at times as Japan is. And in watching this game, it felt like me sitting there being like, okay, now it's time to speed it up. Now it's time to take risks. Now it's time to start playing long balls. And they didn't. They stuck to their game and they found their chances, and they weren't maybe chances that do come out of the game model, right? That turnover. The penalty, though, is a little bit of like, instead of trying to take a hopeful shot or play that long ball, you cut back, you continue trying to play through the box. It was all a large segment of play around some set pieces that came. And eventually you get that equalizing goal. And Japan sort of stuck to their guns where 90 minutes into this game, you're thinking like, is this happening again on the Japan side of, I thought they were one of the best teams at the Women's World Cup, and they lost on sort of silly goals and then weren't able to impose themselves the other way. And now you're looking at a team, I still think, which no one wants to play in the knockouts, no matter what happens in the final group stage game for Japan.
Absolutely. When I was coaching with the under 17 national team, when you're scouting Japan, they're one of the easiest to figure out what they do, but hardest to break down because it's so methodical, and it's methodical from U15 up to the senior team. And look, every federation tries to do that in their own way. But Japan is just known for really having their system, the belief in it. They don't veer from it, and it's incredibly hard to defend at times and extremely hard to break down. So they're not an easy team to come up against.
And this group's still all to play for, really, except for in Spain's situation. Spain are going to win, or Spain are qualified already, sitting on first place on 6 points. They played against Nigeria. It was Putellas with the goal in the 85th minute. It was a hard-fought game. It felt like Nigeria was going to get out with the result, and it was a very clean performance for this Nigeria team. You think about Spain, and you say, oh, we're going to be scrambling, emergency defending the whole time. Outside of one or two huge saves from the goalkeeper, for the most part, Nigeria kept their lines clean. They kept the game in front of them, and it felt like Spain was going to falter in this one, similar to as it did against Japan for large stretches. But again, they're committed to their style, and they've got world-class match winners. You look at the free kick from Putellas, and it is purposefully shot to the far post in a crossing moment. And that's one of those things that there are 4 or 5 players on the world who think to do this, and there are 1 or 2 that could probably execute. And the drive on the ball just made it so that once the goalkeeper had taken the step forward, there's nothing you can do, and it's a match winner. And that's something Spain has up their sleeve that no one else has.
And the top goal scorers, they work in percentages. They know in certain moments where to put the ball to give it the best chance to go in the back of the net. And I think that's one of those moments that it's very obvious that's what she does. She strikes it extremely well. If she doesn't hit that on frame, there's someone running into the back post. You give yourself enough time for your runners to get in. Fortunately for her, it curled right in perfectly. But, if you're Nigeria, they're not going to probably think this now, Randy Waldrum and his staff, but 1-0 losses to both of these teams and being in games long term, that's something that's pretty impressive because they have such a hard draw in their group. And right now, you're not going to think that. You're like, we got to execute, we got to advance, we had opportunities, but it's pretty encouraging for Nigeria.
And we said coming into this was the group of death. Me and Jordan felt that in the preview, and Japan felt like they were out 85 minutes into game 2. Spain felt like they weren't going to get a victory in game 1. Like you said, Nigeria got as tough as they could. I think you heard the cheer for Uchebe when she came off in the 84th or 85th of the acknowledgement from the crowd of the battle that they had put in. And it wasn't purely sitting into their lines. Oshala, I thought, had chances in transition, a decision here or there, and you get a 1-0 lead, or they almost tied it 1-1 in the end. One of the things that's so fun about Spain right now is when you watch them and you watch Paraelu, it's just this piece that they have in which we're going to knock it around and everyone's going to play the same way, and then she gives you a wild card that you don't expect. Her pressing is off the charts, and where a press is coming from normally, and then she'll round out her run and come inside when you think it's going to come from the other side. And it's just all these moments that make life difficult. It looked like she had the go-ahead goal off that first free kick, knocked in, offside by less than an inch on the tip-in and all of that. But it was an awesome game. It was fun to watch. There is not an easy game in this competition. It's one of the things we've talked about over and over is so limited rosters, limited rest, and everything now to play for in the third match day, and so little truly decided. But the U.S. has qualified for the next round, and the World Cup winners, Spain, have qualified for the next round. Do you have any big thoughts about anyone before we go? Do we have any new favorites, anyone who's fallen off, anything that sort of strikes you?
Not necessarily. I just am excited about the style of play of the United States right now. It's just more as a whole, and the way the team is playing, the way they're clicking. We focused a lot on obviously the front three because that's the sexy part, they're putting goals away, but I think everyone right now is doing their job, and that is something that really propels the team forward. So I'm excited to see that. I hope we see that in a third game, that yes, it means something because they want to get first in the group, but really they're in a great position right now. So will they continue on, or will it be a little bit of a stumbling block? I'm excited to take a look this week and see how they respond to it.
Everything still left to play for every other team. No one eliminated yet because those best third place teams get through. So you can get through on 3 points. Therefore, Nigeria and Zambia, the two teams on 0 points, and Canada on their 0 points because of the negative. They are still alive. They still control their own destiny going forward. It is going to be fascinating to watch over this final game. So all of the games happening on Wednesday. We will be back, as I said, live after the U.S. women's national team game, where the U.S., we will preview their knockout round opponent because we will know that at that time because the U.S. picking up the 4-1 victory over Germany. They qualified in their spot for the next round. 7 goals in 2 games. It has been a wild ride already. We're only 2 matches in, and we're hoping it goes for at least 2 more weeks after this one because we're only on the first weekend of the Olympics. I've consumed like 97 hours of Olympics so far. I'm an archery expert. I'm a canoeing expert. And I'm a fencing expert right now. Do you have any other sports that you're locked into?
Fencing expert. I love that. Well, I've been watching the rugby sevens, American women doing well today. We've got gymnastics tonight in prime time at 7 Eastern. So I'm excited about those coming up tonight for sure.
It's going to be awesome. Simone Biles back on the mat. I love the Olympics. It's the best time of year. And it's cool when the women are doing well and a part of it. And the U.S. men got a win yesterday as well. Didn't do a post-game show off that one because, like, you should kind of beat New Zealand. So no offense, but we will talk all about that coming up. And our show on Tuesday, which is live at 2 p.m. Eastern time every week, will be during the second half of the U.S.'s third group stage game. So we'll basically do a watch along as we talk all the Leagues Cup, MLS stories, transfers, and everything else with Tom. Kacey, thank you for being with me once again. You are 2-0, so obviously we will have you come back now for the third one.
Hopefully the good luck charm.
If they lose, I can't promise anything after that. Honestly, I might be out if they lose. I might put it on myself. To all of you, thank you for being here live. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Everyone else listening on podcast, thank you as well. And we'll talk to you again very, very soon.